Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Tiff and Tony Show.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tiff and Tony Show. Tiffany, how are you doing this morning?
Hello, I am good and excited to have another conversation with you. How are you doing, Tony?
I am doing awesome. Thank you very much. I can't wait to get into this conversation because we're going to build off of last week's program, which was moving, right, that change, moving from the change that happens to us and then the change that we select. And we talked about tiny habits and starting small, making it as small as possible. And that's how we transition into potentially a new life. And so that's what I wanted to talk about this morning is transition.
Yes, such a good topic. I know you are personally and with your game going through transition. I am very personally going through transition as well as some things with Pure Game. So many people on our team, and the state of our country and our world right now is just the nature of transition. So I know you wanted to start out with something, maybe the definition of transition. You want to go for it?
Yes. So the definition of transition, which I thought is very important, it's the process or a period of changing from one state or condition to another. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is it's important for us to understand that is that transition is a process. It's not just a one-time interaction and you're done. There's this period of change, right? We were talking about change last week. It's this taking that change and implementing it one step at a time, small increments, tiny habits, a little bit by little bit until the process is complete and you've transitioned into your new life. And so that's why I thought it was important to talk about that. And you had a question.
Yes. So Tony, in the past or currently when you are going through transition, what are the things you've noticed as being or feeling the hardest parts about the transition?
That is a great question. I think it comes from the statement we had last week about the brain being very comfortable with what is familiar. And so the toughest part with transition is moving through the constant change, because nothing is familiar with transition. Nothing is the same. So every day, every minute of every day, you're walking through the mire of newness. And so the brain is on constant high alert. And so it's tiring. And so it's awkward and clunky and uncomfortable. And so, yeah, that's my answer. What about you? What do you think about that same question to you?
Yes, so I'll answer that. I just want to provide some feedback. I love those three words you just used to describe transition: clunky, uncomfortable, and awkward. It feels so awkward sometimes. And I know that in my own life. So yeah, I would say things I've noticed as being the hardest about transition, whether it's in the past or all of the things that are kind of uprooted in my life right now, are the uncertainty of it and kind of the clunkiness of it is a good word, because it's not smooth. And some transitions, yes, can be smooth. We're not saying all transitions are negative or bad. They're actually feelings and things about transition are all over the spectrum. Right now, we're just talking about the hardest things. And so clunky is such a good word because it feels like, at least in my personal life, I am going to be bouncing around. I'm no longer going to be living here. So in all these videos, you're going to see me in some new places coming up. And yeah, it's just been super clunky, the whole planning process. And thinking I could move directly from this home to another long-term home is turning into me taking a road trip with my dog, and then I'm going to be couch surfing indefinitely. So this whole process has been very much every day something kind of changes in my plan moving forward. It's clunky. I'm having to coordinate so much. I've never really been in this kind of spot before. I've moved around a ton all throughout my life. And this is kind of the weirdest. And also, it's kind of the most exciting. So that's how I also want to transition into what does transition look like along the spectrum. We've talked about some of the hard things. And there's some exciting things that can come with transition, and not always. Some transitions just suck. I get it. They do. And some transitions, I would say maybe most transitions, are more of a mixed bag of the emotions and what's happening. Yeah, how does the kind of spectrum land for you? What are some things you're excited and hopeful for?
It's the exciting thing is the newness of all of this, and what it could potentially offer. The scary thing is, what if none of it works, right? Same as couch surfing, right? What if it doesn't work? And then we've got to get into, which is another tool that I'd love to talk about, but we haven't got time today, is this plan B thinking. Well, if that doesn't work, where am I going to next?
Yes.
But the tools of transition, right? The tools of transition is, I'm going to list some that come to my mind, and we've talked about many of these before. Patience, right? Be kind to yourself during transition. We can be our own worst enemy at times and really beat ourselves up. So watch your internal narrative and what you're saying to yourself. Journal is a big key through transitions. Talk about in writing what you're going through. If you are a person of faith, pray, meditate, whatever it is your faith leads you to, then lean into that and honor that and see the bigger picture. So there's some tools that they're the things that I use during this transition. What about you? What are some of the things that you look to do and that you could offer advice for our teenagers to kind of work through?
How have I been coping? What are some positive things that we can encourage the youth? I have been listening to some of my favorite music when I'm feeling anxious and stressed. Dance parties. I think a lot of us by now know that I love dance parties and dancing. And my dance parties are solo at home. You don't need anyone. You can dance with your family or not. I mean, I just turn music up loud and I just move my body and I feel free and it's amazing. It reduces my stress. It lifts my joy. It just fills me up. And honestly, it kind of tires me out so I can sleep at night too. And then another just huge thing that has been so helpful is me really intentionally connecting with my close friends in my life, and just for fun, talking, all of that, and also to like just process the hard stuff, process the clunky, and getting to spend time with some people that I'm able to, just given our limitations with the pandemic. And so, yes, I would say lean into things that help you feel joy and de-stress, whether that's dancing or whatever else it is, and human connection, whether that's in person, on the phone, preferably, maybe FaceTime or something like that. And so, Tony, you mentioned a book that you wanted to recommend that you were going to start reading. I'll let you say the name of it, and then I'll hold up my phone so everyone can see it.
Yes, it's Life is in the Transitions. And I listened to a podcast with Bruce talking on the podcast, which is where I got introduced to it. And it's very clear, very straightforward. It gives you some really good, interesting kind of action items and points to go through. So I'm going to get it, I'm going to read it, and I'm going to hopefully share some of that learning here on the Tiff and Tony show to give the kids some real practical tools, much like I did with the Tiny Habits. I think we need to cover more Tiny Habits practices. But for now, as we wrap up today, kids, what you need to be looking at, be kind to yourself, go connect with other human beings, find something that brings you joy. Dancing, for me, it's bike riding, journal, and connect to that faith. I think if you can start doing that, there's some easy tools to help you go through the journey of a transition. And remember, it's a journey, which is why you need to be kind to yourself.
Yes.
It doesn't just happen today, tomorrow. It's probably over the course of weeks, months, whatever it is. So be kind to yourself. Tiffany, it's always a pleasure to have these conversations. Anything else that you'd like to add before we say goodbye?
One thing, I hope that this has been an encouraging and relatable conversation. I hope that it helps you work through this transition in a way that you feel loved and cared for and supported.
That's all I've got. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
Same.
Goodbye. See you in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining Tony and me in this conversation about transition. We hope that it helps you feel encouraged and that you have some more tools to lean on as you're going through the transition and feeling all the things. If you like what we're doing here, one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing to our channel on YouTube and liking us on social media. And with that, we'll see you right back here in 2 weeks.